longer than 5, maybe less than 10, we'll see. We'll see how long it lasts up here. So, how many of you guys have visited the new version of the website for IESD?
Love it.
Briefly.
Wonderful, okay. So not many
How
of
do
you
you guys do
guys.
that weird IE and then the Empire part for the divs? That's pretty cool.
Very good. So, it's kind of dark on the screen, but
CSS. It's in there.
yeah, so we have the, a lot of these items are coming off of an API. We're utilizing GraphQL. A lot of this has been offloaded to plugins on the WordPress side. You know what, I think I might use the whiteboard, actually. Sorry, Jen. Okay, did everyone get on the Wi-Fi that needed to get on the Wi-Fi?
Yep.
Going once, going twice? No? Okay, cool. So how many of you guys have worked with APIs before? APIs. Perfect, okay. So, we have the wonderful WordPress as our backend, right? We're utilizing it as a headless CMS, meaning we're not going to build the front end with WordPress or PHP, okay? We're going to utilize whatever technology we're using for the front end. However, what we get out of WordPress is utilizing a couple of plugins. What it does is it builds a backend server for the GraphQL, and it builds out everything automatically, okay? When you add items to WordPress, it automatically spits out everything into your API. It builds out the API for you, okay? Scaffolds it, okay? This includes items like custom options, custom post types, all kinds of articles, media, users, everything, okay? So what we're doing here is we're using a plugin to take care of the GraphQL. We're also using the plugin because we're lazy. We don't want to code. Okay? Not only that, but I want to have people that have no experience with WordPress be able to extend it, right? So we're using the plugin called ACF, which is Advanced Custom Fields. And what this does is it allows you to create, well, it's in the name, guys, custom fields, right? So we also have another plugin.
That's custom GraphQL fields or what?
I'm sorry?
Custom fields in the WordPress or in the GraphQL?
Yeah, so the way that it works is that you can add any sort of custom fields to any post type on WordPress, any page, any article, anything you want, right? And then all of this, consider this the back end, okay? This is all served in a beautiful little API. So when you request something through here, you get the data back as JSON, right? So I'm going to show you guys how that works on through the dashboard.
John, the third one you said, is that custom post types?
Right, thank you.
Yeah.
I didn't finish that. I won't have one of these over there anyway, so. Slides, I need slides. Perfect. Okay, so before we go into this, how many of you guys are familiar with the WordPress dashboard? Oh, that's a lot more than I thought. Okay, wonderful. Okay, so before we get off the screen, we have items coming off of the API. So for example, we have a field where, for example, Jen can go in and update it. She doesn't have to write a single line of code. So we go in here. It's called api.isd.com. It's a WordPress site, right? So we log in just like we do in any other WordPress site. Log in. I have a little menu item on my dashboard that I called API config, and I have something for the organization, right? I click on it, and I have a bunch of custom fields in here, okay? So for example, this one called announcement. It handles the announcement, right? Very straightforward. Items like mission. Let's say I don't want there to be a...
Sorry, could you zoom in a little bit?
Yeah. Let's see how that works, let's see. I'm actually zoomed out, that's wonderful. Okay, is that better, guys?
Yeah.
Nope, that's too much. Okay. So if we go back, we have this component here called mission, right? We have another one down here called goals. Now, imagine if I needed to update that text, I would have to go through the front end, update dev, test it there, push up to staging, test it again, and then push up to production, just because I wanted to update some text. But if I want to update text, what happens if I accidentally mess up some other line of code? Have you guys ever done that before? So I work for Ezra and I've done it. I just caught myself today actually.
Wait,
Something.
This is all in the about page of the WordPress?
No,
The homepage.
I'll explain it right now. I did that 4 months ago and I just caught myself. I looked at GitHub and I'm like, who's responsible for this? I was gonna go and like say, what are you doing? And I saw my name, I'm like, what am I doing? So it wasn't fun.
It's like that moment in Madagascar when it's like, who's talking? Oh, wait, it's me.
Yeah, wonderful. Yeah, so you were asking, where is this coming from, right? So we have an item in the menu that we created. I called it organization. And we have all these fields that handle all the data that's been spit out and consumed by the front end, okay?
That's the advanced custom fields that he was talking
Yeah.
about. He set this up using that.
So again, I'm just showing you this so that when I talk about the individual plugins, I can come back and refer to these items, okay?
Is this a special theme or?
Nope. I'll explain what it is exactly, okay? But thank you for asking that. So all these settings, again, mission, goal, address, email, phone, map, okay? They're all being consumed on the front end. So this right here, you can see the address, this map, that is actually becoming an issue and I need someone to take it off because we don't need the map anymore. It's causing more issues than it helps.
Oh, really?
I have people coming through the back door over here and they're getting lost because it's closed, so yeah. Phone number, email, and everything, okay? So do we understand that the information is coming from the back end for the front end? Okay. Do we understand that the back end is built with WordPress?
Yes.
Okay. The front end, this whole site is built with a framework called Next.js. Okay? Next.js is utilizing React. Okay? Anyone familiar with Next.js?
Haven't used it.
I'm sorry?
I haven't used it yet.
Wonderful. You're going to use it. But you're going to contribute. Perfect. Okay. So let's cover the dashboard first. So again, let's go under to plugins. So I told you guys that we're using a couple of plugins to offload all that work, right? So that we don't have to line any line of code, right? Wonderful. So we have Admin Menu Editor Pro. The reason why I'm using this is because there are different roles that we're using on site. For example, at some point in the future, we're gonna have people creating articles for the blog. We'll stop moving, I promise. I'm sweating over here, stop. We're gonna have roles for people that will handle specific areas of the site, right? So what we're doing with this is that for those specific roles, we're hiding different parts of the navigation, right? Maybe I want someone to just focus on updating plugins for some reason. I want to hide everything else. I don't want them going in there and then messing something up. And then whose fault is it? My fault.
So we're only saying this because you're logged in as
As
like
administrator.
a root, basically.
Yes, exactly. Okay, so that's what this plugin does. Admin Menu Editor Pro. Now, Advanced Custom Fields Pro allows me to add any custom field I want to things like posts. Speakers is what is called a custom post type. It's also a post, but I've given them a different identifier, okay? So all of these, like for example, posts, speakers, staff, community, stories, sponsors, they're all technically posts for WordPress, but they have different identifiers, different slugs, okay? Does that make sense? Scott? Perfect. So let's go under speakers, and I'll show you what community looks like. So if you notice on the front end, we have a section for speakers. All of these speakers are coming from the back end, okay? So you can see we have Edgar, we have myself, Tony, Anisha, and so on, okay? If I go in and I edit one of these, I can edit the title for it. This is for us to identify it on the back end. We have the name, title, presentation, like what presentation did they do, and then an image for them, okay? All of these fields were created with Advanced Custom Fields Pro, okay? The way that we do that is we look here on the dashboard and we're looking for custom fields. We click on field groups and it'll show you all the field groups that you've created. Now I'm looking for speakers. So I go speakers, edit, and you can see I can add different fields to this, right? So let's say for the sake of it, test. Okay, so I'm adding a field label, a name so I can identify it through the back end, the type of field that I want. I can choose what kind of field it is, text, text area, number, range. Let's say you wanted to upload an image, you can do image. Let's say you want to do a gallery for some reason, you can do gallery. Choices, let's say you want to create some sort of relational input so that it shows you all the posts and you can choose different posts. So all of that's in there. The basic version of it is a bit more restricted. This one's the pro version, so it has a lot more fields in here. But I'll create this as a image. Jesus. I'm like sweating over here, dude. Okay, update. So if I go back to edit speakers, you see how easy that was? Yes?
Yes.
Perfect, okay. So had you had to do this from scratch? I'm gonna take this off. I finally give in, Jesus. Okay, no, stop. Let's not do that. Okay, so if I had to do this by hand, I would have to spend like 30 minutes writing the code, pushing it to dev, and then pushing it to staging and then production. So that's what, an hour there, wasted? But here you just did it in 10 minutes.
Why
Well-
wouldn't you just edit the WordPress post that this was in?
I'm sorry?
I'm confused. Why wouldn't this be?
Ask your questions.
I don't even know how to phrase the question. I'm sorry.
I think
So-
he is just editing that in WordPress. That is exactly.
But why would you have to push it to dev? Why would it take so long to just edit?
Why
Oh.
the alternative? Yeah.
So the alternative, meaning if this were hard-coded into the front end, right? Let's say you're working with like pure HTML, and you have to update the code. So you go in, you
Okay.
add a member, you add a list item.
I thought you were talking about editing a WordPress page. I
No,
was
no,
like,
no, 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 no.
Why
You-
would it take
well,
an hour to
you had
edit a
asked-
WordPress page?
Well, you asked earlier about was he using a theme. This is his theme.
And,
So
and,
instead
and I'll
of
get to it.
hand coding the theme, he's using these pieces and elements.
So first I want to show you the dashboard, because in a minute I'll show you the code, and I don't want you guys to get lost. How many of you guys know how to work with PHP? Exactly. See, there's only a couple of you guys. I'm like, if Bass were here, he'd be like, that's not a real language. So, okay, so I'm gonna go back and I'm gonna delete that field because I don't need that field. Field groups, speakers. I want you guys to know I'm already thinking about ways to get out of this talk. Barry, if you're listening, I'm so sorry. Because I'm dying over here. And it's only like 15 of you guys. So let me delete. Are you sure? Yes. Update. Gone. Okay, if I go back. See? Gone. So it's very easy, very straightforward. So why would I do that? Let's say I want to add a different bit of information. I want to add, I don't know, the date that they did their talk, right? I can add a field for that. There's a field type, I think it's calendar. You guys see it? Please let me know. Date picker.
I was gonna say it's under jQuery.
There you go. And then date. Save.
It's actually going to give you a JavaScript snippet from the API or something. I'm wondering why.
I'll show you the API, yeah. Let me find the speaker. Here we go. Perfect. So you guys saw how easy that was?
Wow.
So I click on it, it's got this little UI here, wonderful. I don't even have to know how it works, it just works. Bam, done. That's funky. There we go. Update. Okay. Now what's the point of me adding all these fields and not being able to access it from the front end, right? Like, how does that happen? First of all, you guys want to know what data is in the API, right? Right? Yes. Okay, perfect. Come on, guys, I'm giving you the answer. You just gotta say yes. Okay. No? Was it no? Was that the right answer? Okay. So we just went over advanced custom fields. Okay. We're gonna cover how we're gonna get that data, right? Before we go there, how many of you guys understand what a post type is in WordPress? Wonderful. Okay. So by default, WordPress comes with one post type called post. Okay, that's where all your articles live by default. However, let's say for example, Esri. Esri has something called the newsroom. The newsroom has about 6 or 7 publications. They have Where Next, they have Arc News, Arc User, Arc Watch, Esri Blog, and then they have podcasts. Each one of those resides within one WordPress installation. Okay, each one is considered a post type. So whenever I pull a list of articles for Where Next, I'm only given Where Next. I'm not given all the other publications. So you guys see how useful that is, right? Perfect. It's a way to kind of classify specific types of posts.
They're in their own WordPress installation using the same database?
Yeah, so each one of these is a post type, and it's the same WordPress installation.
No, I'm talking about, but you're saying at Esri, they're all separate WordPress installations?
No. They're under the same installation that we call the newsroom, and they're just different post types.
Okay.
So here, just to better illustrate it, because it makes more sense if you actually look at it. Okay, so the newsroom has different publications. So Where Next magazine, podcasts, the Arc News, User and Watch, blog, and so on. Each one of these is a different post type. Okay, so for example, if I visit this article, this is of type blog. Okay, that's the post type. If I visit podcasts, all of the articles within podcasts are the post type podcast. Okay, does that make sense?
And this is all in the same WordPress installation?
Same installation. Yep, same installation. Okay.
Is there no distinction? Is that what other CMSs would just call tag, or is it different than a tag? Like,
No, so tags, categories, and so on, that's considered, that's all under the umbrella of taxonomy,
okay,
right? Yeah, so that's what WordPress considers it. The post type itself is how you classify the actual type of the post. Oh, it's within the name. Wonderful. It's like I'm listening to the presentation as well. It's great.
It's very meta.
Huh?
It's very
right?
meta.
Yeah. I'm all like, dude, you're not making sense. You just said the same thing backwards. But it works, right?
Oh yeah.
Perfect. Okay, so how do we build these custom post types? Calm down, Jen. I'm trying to stay alive. I'm like stopping the sweating, so it's almost there. I'm almost comfortable. Damn it. Post type. Okay, so normally what it takes is I don't know, maybe like 20 lines of code to create a post type, and then you have to go and drill down through all the settings that you want. Okay, but let's say we don't want to do that. Okay, we have the plugin called Custom Post Type UI. So it's an admin panel for creating custom post types and custom taxonomies in WordPress. So I go here and I click on Add or Edit Post Types. Okay? So I have the option of creating a new post type or editing an existing post type. So let's say I want to edit speakers. Okay, I go here, and it's my first one, wonderful, speakers. I can change the slug, which is how I'm gonna identify it through the API. I can change the word that I want to use to identify as a plural. So instead of saying speaker, I can say speakers, right? Singular label, I have it there. Now, the rest are in case you want that level of granular control to where you can modify specific labels for it, you do have that control. So let's say when it says all items, you don't want to say all speakers. You want it to say all talkers for some reason, right? You can put that in there. Okay, so all of these are the labels. You keep scrolling down and down, and then you have settings. Do you want this to be a public post type, or do you want it to be private? Okay, can people query it through the API? Okay, do you want to show the UI, show in nav menus, REST API, and so on? What we're using is this one right here, show in GraphQL. Okay, now this, I did not come up with it. I'm not that smart. I read it off documentation. Okay, I read documentation. This right here supports. These are all the features that your custom post type can support. I didn't want to see any of these. Okay, so let me show you the difference. Again, I know I'm jumping around, but it's more of a demo, kind of a, oh, look at what I built, right? So if I look at a normal post, let's edit one of these. This is what it comes out with by default, right? You have your editor, you have your settings here, things like categories, tags, excerpt, discussion, order, and so on. So you can go ahead and create your article here, right? But because I'm building something custom, I don't want all of this. I'm not writing a blog article, right? I want to add speakers to my site. So what I do is I remove the support for all of these different features. And I do that by not checking this here, okay? The only one I want is title. Why? Because if I go under speakers and I'm not supporting titles, these are all gonna show up as no title. I did that originally. I'm like, really? It didn't work out like I thought it would.
It's kind of hard to know which one's which.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, so again, this is the default view of a post in WordPress. Okay, this is called the Gutenberg Editor. Okay, have you guys ever used it before?
Yes.
Okay, it feels a bit like, how about Wix? Have you guys used Wix before? Wix, okay. I have to ask questions so everyone raises their hand. Anyone ever use like a page builder?
Yes.
Yeah.
Come on, guys. You guys were all born knowing how to, whatever, it's fine. Okay, so just so you guys know what it is, these are all called blocks. I can go in and move them around, drag them around. It's very intuitive. Let's say I want to.
I actually like it. I know a lot of the old schools like complain the difference from classic to this, and I'm like, this is
Let's
better.
say in between these two, I want to add an item. Hover, and I'm looking for a block I want to add, right? Add an image. I look for the image in the media library. Oop, not my directory. Just kidding. Inside joke, guys. Look for an image. Done. Update. Oh, I'm gonna update. I'm gonna mess it up. Whatever, it's fine. Fix it when I'm done. Okay. Now, let's say I go to the front end, right, to the site, because we are using the post type of posts. So if we go to the IESD website, to the front, here are our blog articles, right? Let me go back and see what it was that I edited, because I'm not sure.
Just hit new post.
Introduction. Right, but remember, by default, this will take me to the WordPress version.
Oh.
Yeah. However, we can use a hook and change that link automatically to point to the front end site. It's called Introduction to Domains, posting something. So let's read article. Wonderful. I added an image of UCR somewhere in here, right there. You see that? Wonderful, right? Now the front end has nothing to do with WordPress. It's all built with Next.js. But all of this content is sent through the API, okay? Okay. So let's go back. If I can figure out where I'm at, let's close these. So it looks like I know what I'm doing. Okay. So right. So we can see here, if I don't click them, they're not gonna show up, right? If I do, they're supported. I can also set the icon for these. So for example, let's say I want to change the icon for the API config menu item. I can change it here. It takes dash icon class names or a custom image, okay? I didn't create custom images. I just went with whatever WordPress has. If you just, highlight that, say, hey Google, do my job for me, and then you click here, you get all these class names. Okay, you can choose from all of these. It's not that many when you actually think about it. And it changes that little icon here. Okay. Okay, are we following along so far?
I'm with you.
Pretty easy, right?
Yes.
Okay, cool. So now let's go back to our list of plugins so we can see what's next. Oh, look at that, let's update. I should have checked that was going to break my site, but I didn't, right? We're living on the edge today. Okay.
I do it all the time.
Living on the edge while we're dying over a talk.
Like update,
Yeah.
refresh. Oh, we're good.
Yeah, no, my friend,
Proactive would be much better.
my friend did this at Esri. My friend, of course. And the site came down, the production site, it went down. And it was down for like 10 minutes until somebody from the back end just got access to, undo the mess ups, was there.
My theme's built on a framework, and the framework updated, but the theme didn't.
Oh, that's wonderful.
That's awesome.
Yeah, that's great. Okay, so next ones. These next two. Yeah, let's cover them. I'm not gonna go in order though. Let's start with this one at the bottom. What WP GraphQL does is that it adds support for advanced custom fields, because those new fields are not out of the box for WordPress. So they need to be supported so that they show up not only in the API, but through the GraphQL server, right?
So you said those support the custom types. Does WordPress nowadays out of the box have a GraphQL server?
No, it doesn't. So I'm gonna get to that.
Even just to get classic posts.
You know about GraphQL, so that's wonderful.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so this plugin, what it does again, it adds support for those custom fields so that the GraphQL server can actually see them, right, and serve them. Now this
And
one
the
right
regular
here.
classic fields too. That's the source of my question.
Yeah. So out of the box, yes, with this plugin called WP GraphQL, it creates a backend server for GraphQL, and it exposes what the API already provides out of the box. Okay, what WordPress provides out of the box. I hope I have it. That's not this one. Oh, thank God. Because I cannot remember these things. Okay. So I think it's... Wonderful. I like the history. Okay. So you guys see the URL that I went to, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Anyone here have a WordPress site that's comfortable with me having it on the screen? Oh, all the hands went down.
That's
I
fine.
have one that I'm still working on.
Oh, okay, no, I need content on it.
It's got content.
Yeah.
Findingmyinnergirl.com.
No, Golden Arc Industries. I need that free marketing.
So it's findingmyinnergirl.com?
Yeah.
Okay.
This looks personal. Wow.
Is
Want to
it-
buy some hair accessories?
Yeah, store.
This marketing was not planned. I want you guys to know. However, if you're interested in
They
it.
should pretend to be, you know.
Okay, so all I did was I added wp-json /wp/version 2. It better work. Perfect. Okay, for those of you guys that are catching me clicking over here, that's a plugin for Chrome so that I can actually read what's going on here. Otherwise, it gives me that ugly, that ugly. I'll just
Which
refer
one
to
do
it
you
as that.
use? Because I have one that automatically runs the JSON. I don't have
Oh,
to
well,
read
that's
it.
nice. Mine doesn't do that. They're showing off over here. Next week,
I was
you're
like,
doing
why
the top
are
of
you
that plugin.
loading?
So
I
finding my
built
inner
it.
girl. So this is the API that's built by default. Okay, April didn't have to go into the back end and build this API. And if she told you she did, she's lying. So all of this is here.
I did.
Let's see. So let me make it smaller. So what does the API provide by default? Pretty much everything. Except sensitive data, right? There are items that you need to be authorized to be able to access. To make updates, you need to be authorized, okay? So it's not unsafe, right? Perfect. I know there's this there's bad rep on WordPress being unsafe. It's not necessarily WordPress itself as a software solution. It's the way people utilize it, right? It's as strong as your security skills. So there you go.
Yeah.
Exactly. So I'm glad we got that out of the way. So okay, before I keep dragging this on, you can see that I have posts, pages, media, blocks. So we talked about how Gutenberg utilizes blocks to create content, types, statuses, and so on. So you can see they have access to everything. Okay. The only thing that the WP GraphQL plugin does is that it creates a GraphQL server that stands in front of this API. Okay. How many of you guys are familiar with GraphQL? Perfect. Okay. Someone wanna say what the biggest benefit is about GraphQL compared to a normal API request? Looking at
The
you.
idea is instead of hitting multiple endpoints, the actual backend fetches those data, so it's like less hits to your API, less requests. So if you have a request that has a piece of data that requires another request, you would get that in one request.
Yeah. So
Just
essentially.
speeds up your loading.
Yeah. So essentially.
Like your backend has to do that data processing, but there's less transfer.
Yeah.
Okay.
So essentially what it is that you're asking for exactly what you need, right? So let's say your API is returning 100 different fields and you only need 2.
Okay.
You only ask for those 2,
Okay.
right? And we'll show you right now what that looks like. So again, WP GraphQL adds support for your site to be able to utilize GraphQL, okay? You pretty much just turn it on, follow the steps in the documentation, and you're set. It takes like 5-10 minutes. Okay. This plugin right here is just so I can use custom avatars. That's all it does. I could have written like a hook or something, but again, my friend is lazy. Okay. Now this one, beautiful plugin. Okay. WP GraphQL just has a little I at the end. What this does is that it adds this awesome tool to your dashboard. Okay? So you see, you're thinking about like, how am I gonna write this query? I don't even know GraphQL, right? So you go in here and you're looking at, let's say I wanna get, again, sponsors. I click on sponsors. You see it updated my query already. Let's say I wanna see what it's gonna return if I do that. I click play, I wanna say play, I don't know. Execute query, beautiful. And it returns all this for me, right? But let's say I want to get something more specific. Let's say I want to get the name of the sponsors. Look at me working in the sponsors into this. Wonderful. So I go into, don't embarrass me. No, perfect. Details. And then company. And I press play. Let me, where is it? Sponsor, no. Okay, play. Touches. Did I click on something else that I'm not seeing? There we go, perfect. So, if you guys notice what I was doing right now, if you leave one of these open, it's assuming that you're requesting it, right? And it'll add it into the query that you're building. So, close it. Close it.
And even in the graphical, like, you can type and it'll autofill. The clicking is nice.
Yeah. Again, my friend is lazy, so it's wonderful. It's a wonderful tool. So you can see. So how would you know how to build this query, right? Again, there's documentation for this. You don't just magically know how to do it. So, however, if you go in here and you start exploring, you most likely will find what you need. Right? So let's say I want the company name for the sponsors. I went under sponsors, under nodes, details, because this is a custom field group that I created. Now I don't want to lose you guys, but let's quickly look at the where is it? Custom fields, field groups, and we're looking at sponsors, right? So we're gonna edit sponsors. We'll scroll all the way to the bottom. So there's this field called GraphQL field name.
Okay.
Remember that plugin that said it adds support so that GraphQL can see those custom fields?
Yeah.
This
that's
is what
where
it
that
does.
plugs in.
Yes.
Okay.
So you give it a name so that it can see that field group.
And get all.
Yes.
put in there. Yeah.
So now with GraphQL, I go in and look for details, right?
Okay.
Now I can see company, image, link, and if I go back, I can see that that's what I have,
Yeah.
right? So if I add a new item here, it'll add it over there as well automatically, without me having to write another line of code, okay? So now,
I'm currently dancing through 5 different files.
yeah. So now let's say I want the image. I click on image, looking for source URL, execute. So now it gives me the company name and the image source URL, and now I can use this on the front end. Okay? That's how we're using it on the front end. Okay? Question? Oh no.
From Facebook, Mario Menivar, he's asking, is that a plugin in WordPress? He said fantastic, but I'm not sure.
Yeah, so GraphQL is a plugin in WordPress, and it adds this whole tool for you. Okay?
It's a GraphQL is a general plugin for all kinds of development, but they added it in
For WordPress. Yeah. Let's see. What
Can
else
you
you
get
guys-
GraphQL Playground in WordPress? Or can you access this API? It's this public endpoints, right? You
Yeah,
can
yeah.
URL and
Yep.
put in any GraphQL client.
So we covered the backend, we covered the dashboard, the plugins. Not a line of code was written.
Right.
Okay. Now, on the front end, we're using Next.js, right? How many of you guys? I think I asked this question. Have you utilized Next.js?
I've used
One,
two similar things.
Okay, a couple of you guys, right? All it is, it's a framework for React. Okay. One of the nicest goodies that I think it comes with is server-side rendering. Okay. For those of you guys that have utilized PHP before, you guys are familiar with how at the root of a project, if you input files, the way that you name them, that's how you see them as pages on the front end, right? So for example, the index file, index.php, that's a page. Let's say you do home.php,
Right, okay.
that's a page, right? Well, Next.js does the same thing. There's a pages directory. Any item that you add in there, there's other items you can add in there that don't show up, but any item that you shove in there, it's considered a page. Okay? I visited on the front end, that's the page I see. So the before I move forward with the front end, the repository for the themes or whatever that we're building, I hate calling it a theme because it's not a theme.
Yeah.
For the theme that we're using for the IESD website, it's public. So you guys can go to the IESD organization's GitHub and you can take a look at it there. If you see anything that shouldn't be in there, you can create an issue, work on it, fix it. You don't have to tell me to my face that I messed up. So I can keep thinking I know what I'm doing. So let me show you guys here. So I posted both links in the general chat in case you guys want to take a look. But this is the one for the WordPress API. Okay, this is what's considered a theme. So these files, I did a couple of things, just in case I accidentally delete the directory or something. I have a file in here under install. These are all the plugins that I'm utilizing, and I have a script that marks them as required and tells you, okay, you need to install these for this theme. They're recommended. They're not really recommended, they're required.
Yeah.
So you click for sure, it starts installing them, and you're set. You don't have to go to the repository, download the zip file, and then install it, because they're not in the WordPress plugin repository. For those of you guys who are not familiar with the WordPress plugin repository, it's this wonderful thing where you click on plugins or add new. I click add new, and you have access to thousands and thousands of plugins, right? Well, those 2-3 plugins are not in here.
They're
They have-
GraphQL ones.
Yeah, they're in a GitHub repository. They're not on here. Okay? Specifically, I believe the ones that provide support for GraphQL and like the GraphQL one. Okay. Now for the fun part. I mean, the backend, when you utilize all these plugins and you just do, you know, some little tweaking on the backend, it's not very fun. I found working with Next.js more enjoyable. In order for you to be able to utilize GraphQL with Next.js, there are a couple of packages that you need to install. For example, I installed one called React Apollo. Have you guys ever used Apollo before to work with GraphQL? Wonderful. The one person that's not gonna let me lie right now. Great. You cover your ears while I talk.
It's been a while, but yeah.
Perfect. Okay. So I want to show you guys the component that we're using it with. I said sponsors, right?
Yeah.
Perfect. Okay. So you can see that I'm importing query. Oh, I should probably zoom in, right? Is that better?
Yeah.
I heard one yes. Perfect. Okay, we're importing query from React Apollo. Okay. GQL from GraphQL tag. And here's how we're using it. We have a constant called sponsors query. And we're creating our query right here. Okay. I created this query using GraphQL.
Did you just copy it, paste it?
Yes, I did. Not because I'm lazy.
Well, no, I was just wondering if there was, if that, like, you know,
Yeah.
if there was like some transfer system.
I mean, okay, so here's the thing. Because when I started building this, I wasn't really familiar with how it was being generated. But once that's wonderful background sound. He's lying. So yeah, but once you start building with it, you kind of get familiar with how to access the different things, so you can start building your queries by yourself.
Yeah.
But it's nice because you can test them before you use them, right?
Right.
So it's nice.
That's one of the selling points a GraphQL person would tell you is that it's self-documenting. So you write the schema, it looks like that, and you
Yes.
fetch the data, and it looks like that JSON kind of
Yeah, and it's funny because as I was building the component and adding different items to it, I'm like, wait a minute, so how is it returning it again? Oh, I could just go up here and I see, okay, so it's details, and under details I get company link and so on, right? So it's great. Now, how many of you guys have heard of higher order components? That's 4 of you guys. One of you guys want to tell me what that is? No, okay, wonderful, that's good. So let's go, index, where's index? It's almost like I didn't build this. Oh, no, that's where it is, live, right here. Okay, so when you look at Apollo and you search how to use it with Next.js, there is a repository that comes with 2 files, okay, which is what I'm showing you guys right here. And all this repository is public, right? This is what we utilize for the main website for IESD. Okay, so if you guys want to take a look at it or whatever, it's all there. So these 2 files are what make everything work for us working with GraphQL. Okay, I pretty much just grab them, drop them in here. Okay, that's all I'm doing. Now, in the documentation, it tells you even the name of the directory that you have to use. So it told me to create a directory called lib and drop them in there. Okay. Now here, let me close all of these. Yeah, it is. Bunch of components.
That's the index.
Oh, what I was telling you guys, remember I told you there's a directory called pages?
Yeah.
Okay, so you see these 3 files that I have in here that don't have an underscore in the beginning? Okay, you can consider these like partials that get utilized for building these other pages, but these are the ones I want you guys to focus on. So on the front end, you see how when I'm looking at the blog posts, it's utilizing posts, okay? It's utilizing this page, right? So I'm utilizing it as a template, okay?
So that's where the structure is?
Yes. Then what about page? I use that one when I click on something like privacy policies. You see that now it says page?
Yeah.
And these are the items, the query parameters that I'm passing. And then these are grabbed through Next.js and sent to the GraphQL backend server for WordPress, and it brings all that content down.
Right.
Okay? Now, is that the best way to do it? Probably not. But the reason why it's done is so that anyone on the team can go in and update the privacy policy without having to do a massive code deploy, right? So that's the benefit of it, for us at least. And that's why we're using it that way.
I have a question.
Yeah.
Are you, so for this site, I don't know Next as much, I've done a lot like with Gatsby and nuts. I think it's similar concepts. But are you actually, when you make a change on WordPress, you're not actually rebuilding the site, you're not doing static site generation? Or
No. Yeah, that whole rebuilding is only done when we update the master branch, and Jenkins gets triggered, and then it does the whole rebuild and everything.
Okay, yeah. Well, so you're still fetching the data every time.
Yep.
You're not pre-rendering the data
No.
when WordPress is updated.
No. So one thing that we can do to kind of offset that is utilize a caching server,
Yeah.
right? So I mean a caching service. So that kind of offsets all the requests and everything. So, any of you guys familiar with caching services?
Like Cloudflare or?
Yeah. At least somebody said something. Thank you. I know he's looking at me like I know what you're talking about, but I'm not saying anything. Okay.
I just know that that's, maybe this is, WordPress could get too big, and yeah, that's the thing people do. So like, I have a blog on Ghost, and I do something similar to this with a Vue version of Next.
Yeah,
it's called
yeah,
Next. And so, because it's just a small blog, what it does is, when I update a post, it sends a trigger to my build, and
Got
it
it.
rebuilds with all the content, a full static site, so it's like super fast. But you know, if your site gets big, and
Right.
it takes 20 minutes to build every time someone does a post, then no good.
Yeah. So Next.js can do server-side rendering, right? So that would be a benefit of it. I don't know, in the future we could probably create an issue and have someone find a better solution for that, you know?
Yeah, so right now you're using it just like a single page app, like
Yep.
and you're
Yeah.
using Next for the organizational structure,
Everything,
the
yep.
automatic routing.
Yeah. It's easy. You have a component called link, and if you want transitions or something, you can add them to that. So it's very nice. You had a question?
So if the problem is that you're re-rendering an entire static site, why don't you just use Ajax calls instead?
That's more or less what it's doing. It's
Yeah.
making calls to the GraphQL right now. That's how they're doing it.
Yep. So we can see under sponsors, this is our query that we're sending, right? And it's pulling the data from the WordPress API, right? And again, we're using React Apollo, query component. We're using it here. We pass in the query as a prop. So sponsors query. And then we have, if there's an error, which there shouldn't ever be errors, because Andy wrote this. If there's errors, it'll say, error loading sponsors, okay? I mean, there could be something nicer. This thing's not even styled. It's just like to the side, like an afterthought. So an issue, we need to open an issue for that, okay? If loading, return, it's loading. We can have a spinner or something, right?
Yeah.
Saying, hey, I'm loading, or whatever. Or like a little cat gif or something, I don't know.
Dancing cat.
Yeah, exactly.
It's because I'm so used to PHP.
Yeah, so for those of you guys switching from like LambStack over to like MERGEstack or something, it is a little bit of a mind shift, because you're used to things happening one way. That's not the same with Node.js. It's a bit different.
Yeah.
So yeah. After that, we have our sponsors as a constant, the data that was pulled, and then I just utilize it in the component itself, right? So we're just mapping through all the sponsors, right? Getting all the data, index, sponsor details, link, and so on. So pretty simple, right? So now whenever we need to update the sponsors, I don't have to touch any of this code, right? Unless for some reason I want to add another field or something, then yeah. So how easy is that?
Pretty easy. I mean, once you get it all up.
Right, exactly, yeah. It'll take like 30 minutes, right? Yeah, it'll take a while.
I mean, I like it a lot, but at the same time, like, you do still have to at least know how to code part of the front end.
Yeah.
Can you scroll down into the sponsor? Yeah, I just want to take that. Well, I guess I can look at it on GitHub. Never mind.
Yeah.
I don't need to stop the class. Sorry.
It's because for me, it's different. How many passes does it have to go through? So it goes to GraphQL, then it goes to the server, or does it, how would the whole server side work?
So when it's rendered server side, it does it before the page is loaded,
Yeah.
right? So it does everything on the back end and then creates a page, loads it. That's called server side rendering,
Yeah.
right? What we're doing here is that when it loads, it grabs that data and it renders it,
Okay.
right?
Yeah.
What you were saying actually, doing an AJAX call or a synchronous call,
Yeah.
pretty much that's what you're doing. You're requesting the data, you get it from the server, you get it back, and then you render it. That's all it is, right?
And then, how does it take 20 minutes for it to load? Is it because
No, it's not gonna take 20 minutes.
That's server-side rendering and static site generation are different.
Yeah, no, it's not gonna take 20 minutes.
That's what I was about to say.
No, the static site generation is, you have a blog with all these pages, and you build like a React app, and it's hosted on Netlify or Heroku or somewhere, and it actually goes to all the WordPress pages, fetches the data, and then builds those React components and makes individual HTML pages. And so since it's not the fastest way to do things, it could take a while for like a large corporate site.
Okay.
For my personal blog, it takes about 30 seconds. And so if I publish a post, it builds that whole site with every single page. And people like to do this because one of the challenges with like React apps is you go to a single home page that brings JavaScript to your browser. And that's like a single page, and so you don't get great search engine optimization. It's a single page that's running like an app. Whereas if you do either server-side rendering can work this way too, or static site generation, it's like you have a separate page with its own SEO and stuff like that.
So one of the cool things that
was
you can do with
confusing me.
Next.js, because SEO is always
Yeah,
a concern, is if you noticed things like app and document, you consider them like partials that you're using to, inject items into the other pages. So you can inject things like metadata, right? Description and everything. Let's say you're gonna do Open Graph. You can add all those items in there, and it can be dynamic based on the page that you're visiting, right? So all those things can still happen. The problem is that it's not just out of the box. You're done, right? Like you would with HTML. You just drop it in, HTML, done. You don't have to think about it. So there is a bit more to it, but you can deal with Next.js, or you can utilize like what he was saying. I think you said Ghost.
Ghost is the blogging platform.
Okay.
For actual Next type things, you could use Gatsby as a similar.
Gatsby's
That's for
another.
React as well. And then for Vue, there's one called Nuxt. Like it's a clone
Yeah.
basically.
Oh, okay.
It's called
Yeah,
Nuxt.
because like the
Wonderful.
one thing is that if you were to use PHP, you could just put it in like a p tag, just for example. You do
Right.
PHP, and then after that you can make a variable,
Mhm.
and maybe host the variable somewhere else, and when the inputs change, you can change the text.
Essentially WordPress, the WordPress template.
Yeah.
But the whole point of this is to kind of give you the option to utilize whatever technology you want for the front end, and you also detach the back end from the front end, right? So, for example, one thing that I know is a concern for some people utilizing WordPress is security.
Yeah.
Yeah, you don't want it
All
to
the
just be
time.
open to everyone. Maybe you want to block it off to only people from a specific IP address or whatever the heck you want to do, right? So, for example, at Esri, we block off most of our applications, and you have to be on the DMZ behind the firewall,
Yeah.
right? Otherwise, you can't access them. So, yeah.
That's a nice firewall.
So, I think we covered pretty much all the plugins and what
I think we're good.
everything.
That's pretty
So,
sharp.
any
I like
questions?
that.
What's a plugin? Just kidding.
Oh, no. I'll give you a canned answer. That's out of the scope of this talk.
Yeah.
Any other questions?
Can you talk a little bit about Next.js? Like, so I know you are
He's like,
using,
nope.
I know you're using
Dang.
this just as a single page app, but what is the rationale behind Next.js in comparison to just simply using React? I never used Next.js before, so I don't really know.
For me,
Yeah.
is the organization that it provides.
Mhm.
I am traditionally a Lambstack developer, so transitioning into MergeStack was a pain in areas, right? I didn't like it. However, using Next.js, it feels more like Lambstack in the sense that, for
I'm
example,
not very familiar with Stack either, so.
yeah. So again, what I was talking about pages, how you drop in one of these pages and
Yeah.
one of these files, and it's considered a page, and I can go on the front end
But does that take care of all the routing and all that for you?
Yeah, it does a lot of the heavy lifting for you.
Okay.
Right? It has components like link, where if you want to transition, where it's like page-to-page transition, and it kind of slides or something, or whatever the case you want to do, it does it for you, right? You have the option to do actual reloading of the page, or just like a single page application, right? So it's up to you as a developer and whatever the business requirements are. So it gives you a lot of control over the application. And again, something like CRA, correct me if I'm wrong, CRA doesn't do server-side rendering on the box, right?
No.
Create
React app? Yeah. Yeah, and Next.js out of the box, it does. It also provides things like hot reloading and whatnot.
I was trying to follow along.
Yeah,
Yeah.
hold it. You don't even need to configure React Router because it's based on the folder structure.
Yeah, it's all there. So
That's nice, cause
So I
React
think
Router is
I
a
made
little
some
bit
dependency errors, but I made
for me.
Yeah, and in
Like,
all
kinda follow
honesty,
the
I've been trying to
path.
figure out
It,
why
it,
and how
it,
to
for
get
me,
it.
it's made working with React a lot more fun. And I mean, it's a whole framework, right? It's a whole framework because it's telling you how to do things.
Yeah.
If it didn't tell you how to do things, then it would be a library, right? But it pretty much stipulates where you can put pages. What else? Yeah, I think that's the biggest thing. So,
Okay.
the most important thing at least, because everything else, like and I'm thinking in terms of experience, right? What we're doing for the main website. For example, we have SAS, so we follow the whole 7-to-1 rule. So we have a SAS rule just for that, and we're following that there. But has nothing to do with Next.js. So it kind of also gets out of the way for that. So it's nice. Yeah. Any other questions that I can try and answer and look like I know what I'm talking about? No? No questions?
No more than all of us here.
Wonderful. Okay. So it's 7:17. Are we still recording? You want to stop that?
Say bye.
Bye.
20 questions, Q.
20 questions.